Good evening. Welcome to the Thursday, September 6, 2018 meeting of the Board of Police Commissioners and Woodbridge Traffic Authority. It is now 6:17. Opening up with the Board of Police Commissioners. Are there any public comments or correspondence for this meeting?
There is Mr. Hauser who would like to be seen.
Hi. Sir, can you state your name?
My name is Robert Hauser. I live at 105 Prince Street, Wallingford. I'm a representative of AFSCME 1303-100.
Okay.
I'd like to introduce myself as Robert Hauser. I come before you this evening to comment on the Commission's possible consideration of transferring EMD, Emergency Medical Dispatch, from the police dispatchers to a private subcontractor. AFSCME Local 1303-100 is opposed to a subcontractor performing the duties of any member of the collective bargaining unit. This action, if taken, will be a violation of the collective bargaining agreement with the town. The collective bargaining unit will utilize any legal resources necessary to prevent subcontracting of bargaining unit work. Thank you for your time. That's it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Bob.
Are there any other people that wish to be heard or
There are
any
none.
other correspondence? Thank you, sir. Is Mr. Levy here?
He is here, yes.
Okay, so we can go into executive session. This should be fairly limited in time, so
Vote to go in, motion.
is there a motion to go into executive session? All those in favor? Unanimous.
Who can stay?
You know what's interesting is we used to have new business.
We had new business last time, but we were told we couldn't put any new business in it.
We can just, yes.
Is that what happened?
No, I'm saying it used to be like, always be an item on here.
It was definitely an item
It's not
last.
something we can talk about, we can ask.
It was definitely.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good to see you again.
It's good to see you. It's good to see everyone.
So,
So I filled the board in that we had spoken the other day, and since you had your conditional offer of employment, you complied with all the testing that went along with that and successfully completed everything. And I also shared with the board that we did receive an additional letter of reference from your chief Mello in Milford, and says you're going to be a tough replacement, tough person to be replaced. So he spoke very highly of you, and he's sorry to see you go, and we're happy to hopefully bring you aboard here. So my recommendation is that you be hired to fill our current vacancy, and I'll leave that up to the board to proceed further.
make a motion to appoint.
Make a motion to appoint.
Your second. All those in favor? Overwhelming, yes.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Talked about October 1st, if that still works.
Yes.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Good to have you.
Excellent.
Congratulations, Matt.
Okay. Thank you. I'd like to, thank you and the Board of Commissioners for this opportunity. I'm proud of my career path in law enforcement that it's taken, and I'm looking forward to continuing to serve the residents of the town of Woodbridge and the state of Connecticut. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm excited.
Looking forward to seeing you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
We'll be in touch shortly.
Yes, sir.
We'll
Thank you.
we'll see you soon.
Oh. Okay, moving on the agenda. Approval of minutes, July 5th, 2018. Are there any suggestions on amendments to the minutes for?
Yes. I don't know when this happened, but at some point I got an email with a critical letter that included, I was supposedly CC'd on and some other board members from someone in the community. And I can't even remember how I got it emailed to me. I think maybe our chair emailed it or you emailed it.
Because it
And I
was
don't know,
snail mail to me.
I think it maybe had been received by July 5th, I don't know, but I'm finding like, why am I finding it out through another board member's email versus a proper information from the police department?
Did we get it?
I'm presuming.
No, I think
I
it's.
think it was just sent to three of us.
Well, I never got
I
it
don't
except
think,
through
I don't
Debbie.
think,
I didn't get it.
Did you get it in the mail?
And what was the topic?
I don't remember how I got it.
I got it in snail mail.
I may have gotten it in snail mail
The
too.
topic was the the incident with the canvassers.
You know something,
So-
I'm sorry to interrupt you, I did get a snap out because I remember the return address.
I got a smell, yeah. 'cause
It was the
on
Woodbridge
there.
Club, was the return address.
No, it
Was
was,
it, mine said,
no, mine wasn't the Woodbridge.
Maybe they use
Mine-
different envelopes. Okay, so this may not be a matter for the minutes. I didn't know where the letter came from or to whom. I think it is a matter for the board when the letter comes to commissioners, right? And we need to bring it up at a meeting?
yes, it's in the context of,
I mean, there's no reason you have to bring it up in the meeting, you can read it. I mean, whatever the subject may be.
Well, we need to talk about it. I was just sort of
I mean, I think
blindsided.
something before, you might want to go, there might be something for executive session before we
we can't,
decide if
let's
it's.
not.
No, it's on the
No.
agenda. So I have another question about the minutes. We, at the end of the meeting, before we adjourned, we asked, Deborah and I both asked, could we discuss the canvassing incident under new business? And we were told we couldn't discuss it under new
At that meeting, it
business,
was
so we
special.
asked that it be added to the agenda for the special meeting. That is missing from the minutes, and I think it needs to be added as an addendum, and then it's on the agenda today. And so we,
I'll defer to the chair.
So what I think we should do is have everyone have the opportunity to view the video, and we can, hopefully they can do that by the next meeting. We'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
I've seen the videos. This is not saying anything about what happened.
Right.
But we requested that it be added. It was discussed at the meeting. It's not on the minutes, and it's not added. And I'm not sure that's appropriate.
It can be added to the next meeting.
So just for why, because Doctor would like to get
Just give me the topic.
Why wasn't it
Give me the
on the
topic.
agenda for this meeting?
Give me the
Because
topic.
there were aspects of it that I wanted to investigate before I put it on the agenda. That's why.
So then, I just think if we request it to be on the agenda and then it's not there, somebody should let us know. Because I think it's a recurring theme that we get blindsided by things that some
Well, no.
people know on the board, some people don't.
I'm not sure what you once said about, aside from the fact that it's on today's agenda. I mean, what other?
It was supposed to be on the agenda.
No, I said, but what other
No.
issues were you blindsided by?
You said you didn't want it on the agenda because you wanted to discuss something, so all you have to do is tell us, right?
Wait, but this is the opportunity to do it
Okay.
in a public session.
And I sent an email and asked why was it going to be on the agenda, and no one ever answered me.
Well, going forward, I think the best thing to do is if something is requested to be put on the agenda and one of the commissioners wants to do further investigation on something before it goes on the agenda, it's only, I think it's a good idea just to notify you.
No, I wouldn't mind at all if you
Just
said we got to
communication.
do some further
I don't think
investigation.
there was anything
So
done by-
it's not going to be on the agenda.
I don't think he did anything.
And also,
to
when I sent
avoid-
an email and asked, the question was just ignored. So it just makes it seem
Because I
like.
didn't want to address it in a
No,
private
not that.
event.
No, not that private email. I emailed Janice about whether has the meeting been canceled and is this going to be on the agenda? So it's simple. Can't be on the agenda because we're doing blah blah blah. Would have been fine.
Well, that was
I have no
probably
problem with
lost
that.
in the translation because I don't know that I
No.
relayed it to Janice.
That was what you just said was very clear.
But I'm saying, but I didn't relate it to Janice. So that's probably why it wasn't relayed to you.
Okay.
So she'd have no knowledge of that. So we can place it on the agenda. Now, you said there were two different issues, the issue with the letter and the issue with the...
There's an issue with the minutes and the issue with the agenda. No, Debbie, the other Debbie said
I have the
issue with
letter,
letter. I said
So now we're clarified, it
the
wasn't
minutes
even
should be
here,
reflect
you didn't
what
even know
actually
about
happened.
it.
We did discuss that.
So we all
were
need
told
to-
it was going to be on the agenda.
That's,
There are no
and that's,
modifications.
that's fair.
Please don't misunderstand me. I've
Well,
seen the videos. I think
maybe.
the calls were handled just fine. That's not my issue.
Okay. What
Yeah, I
issue do
think-
you want to put on the agenda?
The canvassing incident. Should be on,
The
and then everybody
incident?
will have a chance to have seen the video.
I thought that was the same issue. Maybe I'm confused. The canvassing incident in the video?
Or
Right.
a letter.
The letter is separate.
It's all,
Well, the letter is
Isn't the letter,
letter's
about
part
it,
of
but
it.
it's
Letter
a
is part
separate.
of it.
isn't part of the entire canvassing issue?
And
Yes.
I was also wondering if we could have a copy of Attorney Horowitz's letter, because
I
somebody,
didn't get that was to the first selectman.
she said she didn't have, I asked her, she said she didn't have.
I told her, you have a copy of it. I have a copy of it, but it's copied. It wasn't sent to me, it was sent to the first selectman. If she's okay with me sharing it with you, I have no problem with it.
Janice, could you ask Attorney Weiner if he can get us
Do
a
you want,
copy of it?
do you want you have the letter that we got?
Do you know the date?
Yeah, I saw it. There's
I
been a
don't.
bunch of, there's been a bunch of,
Can I see
you know,
the
stuff
letter?
flying around editorials, letters. It's,
You have the copy, could you give me the date and, so I can ask him specifically? July 22nd? I just want to see what's from it.
So there are more letters? Can we get, is it possible for us to see them all? But the problem,
Yeah, there was a couple
This is
other letters
anonymous?
that came, but they weren't addressed to you. There was one addressed to the
Yeah.
police
The
department.
letter I had was anonymous.
Okay.
And I never
What's the date,
got.
July what?
22nd.
Thank you.
All right, I've got to run.
It's actually, it was anonymous, but there was a name on the return address. I didn't bring the envelope.
Right, the return address was the Woodbridge Club.
No, I had it, no, mine was
Yeah, maybe
his
it's-
name and I don't have.
Forgive me
It
all.
had a name and everything, but
Thank you very much.
the address was,
Hi, I'll send
I don't know what yours said.
Millhaven, I don't know if it's
No.
11 or,
I don't think mine was that.
I still have the envelope.
I think
I didn't bring it tonight.
I didn't bring it either. I'll look and see if it was. But
So what issue do you want to have on the agenda for
we'll
that?
discuss the canvassing issue, the same thing that we asked about.
Okay, so I was confused because you said the canvassing and the letter, I mean, the video and the letter were two different issues.
No, Debbie said that.
Okay,
And Mr. Chair, so since the issue that Dr. Fried was talking about, we didn't have it, there would be no amendment to the July 5th meeting for now?
No, I asked them for an amendment to the July 5th meeting. That we
but a different
discuss-
question. Your issue was
discuss
different.
the canvassing issue. And we agreed that it would be on the special meeting agenda for August, but the August, I believe it was the 22nd was the special meeting? That was canceled?
Okay.
So,
Now it's your additions.
you have the additions?
Your issue of the additions to the meeting. That's next.
Oh, those additions, okay.
Yeah.
So, based upon a Freedom of Information complaint that was filed by then Lieutenant Libby, the Freedom of Information Commission has suggested that we add to our minutes the discussions that we had in executive session on various dates that related to our thought process and what we discussed regarding the elimination of that position. So it was my intention to generally explain what we talked about. If anyone has any additions they want to put on, they can do that. It's sort of hard to recreate because it was over a number of different days, but that has been the request that was made.
So now, so,
How are you going to do
but
that?
if this is two problems, how are you going to do that? But because we don't take minutes in
Correct.
executive session. And two, I thought that what's discussed in executive session is supposed to be an executive session.
The Freedom of Information Commission determined it was improper to put that in executive session.
Oh.
So it
we're
was the
taking it
position,
out of executive.
it's the position that I had taken, that because it involved safety issues, and a lot of our discussions at the time were based upon the fact that, in my recollection, that we were looking for additional boots on the ground, and we had a limited financial
We had a fi-
budget
we
to
had-
deal with.
We had financial constraints, and
So-
the only way we could come up with that was to eliminate, the only thing we could do to provide the department with more boots on the ground, which is what the request and what was stated to us by not only the union, but many people that came forward. And since we have a very limited, there's a very limited part of the budget that we can truly control. We can only take from things that we can control. We can't take from things that we can't control. And that was the one item that we could control.
So I remember discussions about having too few officers on a particular shift. I remember discussions about some officers indicating that they felt unsafe because of the distances that they had to deal with. And we were trying to accommodate
We're trying to keep
everyone's concern.
And we wanted to make sure that all the officers felt safe and secure on the road.
Unfortunately, despite the fact that I thought it fell within the exception to executive session, which allowed to discuss safety issues, the commission determined that it was financial, and financial issues cannot be in executive session. So I don't know how.
Personally, I thought it was tandem. One without the other was.
Well, we also
Yeah.
discussed issues of safety regarding how much supervision was needed and who should be doing the supervising. But you're right, it's tied up in financial.
They're all interrelated. I mean, I thought the safety and I thought the solution to the safety issue was putting more people on the ground, boots on the ground, you said, and to adding more officers to the staff. And that also, I remember very, very vividly, an officer coming in here and asking us the question, where do I go? I got 3, I'm the only guy on, I got 3 calls. Am I going to the guy that got shot? Or am I going to the accident on Litchfield Turnpike? Or am I going to the alarm that's going off on,
Or domestic, I think.
or
was
the
one of
domestic, right? He had
So-
3 or 4 scenarios, and he said, what do I do? He says, not enough people. And I felt that was a safety issue. I thought that was a safety issue. And then it became a financial issue because of the financial constraints that were thrust upon us
And
with
those
the budget.
public comments and concerns about officer safety prompted a lot of.
Right, it was mainly because of the requests from most of the officers, at least for me, that prompted me to go forward with some of the thoughts that we had.
So from the legal side, I thought it was impossible to parse out the safety issue, which turned into a financial issue.
Right. Well, one
But they don't
became
see it that way. They saw it as it should have been in public session, and that's why we're asking to include that in those amended minutes, if you would.
Well, whoever portrayed what went on, I think misrepresented it, because as far as I was concerned, it was a safety issue. And then it became a financial issue.
But I also don't think it's reasonable to try to reconstruct it by date, unless you have a phenomenal memory.
It would be impossible to do that. I think that generally that should be, I think that was the common theme
I think
in every,
we just did summarize.
what I'm
It
saying.
may have been over
It was over several meetings.
Yes.
several meetings, but I think that was the gist. And that was the overall result was obviously,
So then the proper way to handle this would be to amend each of the minutes that we pulled.
Representing what we talked about
With that
just now?
same,
Yes.
with that same draft.
And then we'll vote on it. It's amended.
Okay, you got it.
yeah, I would just reference whatever the summary of what we just said is.
Yes.
And just reference it to those dates, because there's no way that you can parse it out. I don't believe.
Okay.
Thank you.
So moving on to the financial report.
So the financial report, we're obviously only in the second month of the first 2 months of the fiscal year, so many of the expenditures that we've incurred so far were pretty much contractual related stipends, annual dues, contract renewals, standing purchase orders. If you have any questions about any particular category at this point, I could clarify for you. As far as the overtime goes for patrol overtime for the first couple months, we had 28 hours coverage at the polls, the primary election polls. We had a prisoner at court that had to be guarded a couple times.
Who determines how many people go to the, how much safety is needed at the polls? I mean, you had a primary, you didn't have many.
Right, that comes from the request of the town clerk.
So the town clerk makes the request?
And it pretty much is erred on the side of caution due to a pedestrian accident we had many years ago now. So, and she actually mentioned, upcoming with the in November with the state election and all, they're looking for, I believe, 3 for the primary.
3 for the November elections. I personally just think that that's excessive. I mean, I was there all day at the primary.
It's gonna be dark also.
Yeah.
Oh, like the chief said.
You're talking about the August. There were 3 for August?
The financial.
No, in August there were 2.
Oh, wow.
Correct.
Um,
They might have split some up.
He is back.
What's happening with the overtime as it relates to the investigation, Brendan? Is that still ongoing?
If the investigation is still ongoing, and the overtime is diminished. It's been pretty much, but there's been some new developments and some things that come into play that I can't really elaborate on, but that came into play just last week over a multi-jurisdictional meeting. So, but it won't be anything like it was from the onset. That was the critical time.
Could you give us a percentage or dollar amount that's roughly attributed to that investigation as it relates to this report? Roughly.
To the overall, I can tell you how much.
Is that separately noted? Do you have
Not
that
on the
breakdown?
budget, I keep a separate, a running total
Separate
for the
line.
chief, he has it.
The homicide overtime from April 4th of this year through today into the new fiscal year was 29,643.13. As far as this fiscal year, just in July, it was not very much, under $100.
30,000. It's at 29.
I'm sorry.
Total, but so far for the new fiscal year, it's just under $100.
So, the participation of the FBI and whoever else was involved. So who's leading this? We have $30,000 in overtime. Who's the lead? Are we the lead?
It's our investigation.
Your
It's not-
investigation and
We're not taking the lead, but we're under the guidance of them. It's our investigation, it's Woodbridge's investigation, obviously, but with the assistance of the FBI and the state, and it's really under the direction of the state's attorney's office. We just don't turn over.
no, I
everything
understand.
and say, well,
I'm just wondering.
it'd be easier if somebody else did it.
There was no other way but having that much overtime in a situation like that. There's no other
For a
option.
situation like that, that's a problem that, not so much the cities, but maybe the communities that are small communities, it's hard, but even communities that are a little bit larger, like the valley communities, when they have them, they don't have the wealth of manpower like maybe New Haven has, or they have more than we have, but not as much as a bigger city.
Yeah.
So,
So that didn't help your overtime budget.
Not last year.
no,
Not last year.
it did not. So it's, we were actually, and I think you weren't here, Commissioner, you weren't here last meeting, but I reported that, and I went over this with the finance director, that if we took out the overtime associated with the homicide, we would have been the lowest in overtime for the past 5 years. So we were doing really good.
Great.
Barring we didn't have a lot of storms too, so that
Yeah.
helped us, but we were doing good. And the homicide, unfortunately, was unfortunate in many regards, and so that's where we are with that.
Not all the bank robberies either.
Right. One other question, the overtime for dispatch is at a pretty high number. Is that because we have one person out on the work stop?
Yeah, well, we had one person out, and then he recently came back, and then he also has to attend, he's still on workman's comp, and I'll update you on when I get to that under personnel. But he also oncoming overtime with that, associated with that, because he's still going to physical therapy. So when he leaves for physical therapy, if there's not two people working, it's still costing us overtime. But he was out up until not too long ago. So that's.
Any other questions? So is there a motion to approve the financial report?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Sorry.
All those in favor? Unanimous.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Activity report.
Activity encompasses over 2 months, July and August. Calls for service in July were 2,287. We had 4 drug arrests. 3 of those arrests were associated with motor vehicle stops, associated with possession of controlled substances or possession of less than ½ ounce of marijuana. And there was 1 incident over at the high school after, the summer school program with a possession arrest. We had 3 larcenies. We had one at the JCC. It was from their new cafe hours. A stolen bike out of Metler Street, and a fraud associated with construction on Brookwood. No DWIs, 2 motor vehicle thefts. We had 1 burglary, 22 motor vehicle accidents, 4 injury, 14 non-injury, 4 unknown, 3 domestics, in which 2 of those domestics required an arrest. We have August, calls for service was 2195, 2 drug arrests, both associated with motor vehicle stops, both associated with possession of marijuana less than 1 ounce, or half ounce. We had 1 DWI, 3 larcenies, 1 from Bradley Road, that's the healthcare facility. Some cash in the ring was stolen. 1 out of Prospect and 1 out of 194 Amity Road. We had a stolen motor vehicle out of 11 Inwood. No burglaries. We had 26 motor vehicle stops, and we had 3 domestic disputes. All 3 of those required arrest. 1 of them was through a warrant. ISCU, Investigative Service Unit, they took over 5 new cases. One was a arson of a stolen motor vehicle associated with credit cards. They had a larceny with one of the motor vehicles, and they had a confession, and an arrest warrant was done on that. And then they had assisted with a DCF complaint. They had a couple of arrests. They had their old cases was they have a pending sexual assault case. They have they indicated that they had a conviction with that home invasion we had back in December of 2016, where the convicted was sentenced for 5 years. They're still working on the homicide, and like the chief said, very minimal overtime. Most of the meetings that are going on associated with this are during working hours, so it doesn't really constitute overtime. They had 114 pounds of prescription drugs turned over to the state police on 8/29 for destruction. So that thing's getting its use out there.
Is there a charge for that service to the town, or is it the state?
No, we've been doing it in conjunction with the state police. So, been looking out for it that way.
And there was a DWI arrest associated with, it was a car and an oil truck back in December of 2017. They served a warrant for a DWI on that one. They assisted patrol with 7 cases, 19 fingerprints during the period, 2 pistol permits, no vending permits. Our new school resource officer just started, so there's really not a lot of activity just the past couple of days. He started on the 24th. Amity opened on the 29th of August, and Beecher opened on the 27th. There was no incidents to report. Overall activity from motor vehicle for the officers was consistent during both of the months. A little bit low. A lot of vacations during the summer months of officers. And if you look at each officer closely, you can actually see the officers that took vacation. Just using Joe Kubik as an example, he was off for 3 weeks during the month. So I mean, we don't expect him to have a lot of activity, but it was still consistent with other months. Does anybody have any questions about the activity?
What's an internal function?
Okay.
What's an internal function?
That could range from anything from, an officer coming in here to follow up something, or, coming in to see this chief, coming in to take care of any type of supplemental report that he might
It's
have.
administrative
Functions. Thing.
Looking at the year-to-date numbers, it seems like there's kind of a large disparity between officers. It seems like the bulk of them have a certain amount of stops. We're just looking at total stops. How would you?
Well, we have some very active. We've been trying to look at that a little closer, since the chief and I took it over from the lieutenant. We've addressed it with memos to certain officers that, we expect them to have a little bit more activity. There is certain officers that are very, very active out there, and that's where you see that disparity. Do I have to name them, or can you see? You can
No, I
see
see it.
them.
But there's
they're just more active.
The numbers are really irrelevant, but there are a group of officers that have a certain range, and there seem to be others that have fallen off that significantly.
Correct. Our 4 to 12 shift or our 3 to 11 shift seems to be the ones that are most active. Certainly, that's when the most activity is out there, most noticeable. Day shift, our officers not making excuses, because those are some of the officers we've addressed with their activity, is that they're doing a lot of more administrative things. They might have to deliver mail here to a certain location. They're asked to do a lot of do this, do that type of things
Do they
during the
get
day, where you don't have
other
that during the evening.
Do they get other types of calls?
I'm sorry?
Are they busy doing other types of calls?
Oh, absolutely.
Other than-
Yeah. But day shift it's a different type of response to calls. Whereas in the evening, it's going to be more of the criminal type that people come home, they find their house burglarized, they're going to have to do an investigation. During the day, they're going to it's going to be a lot of burglar alarms during the day because people are away from their homes. So it's hopefully that answered your question.
But you've taken a look at that. That's all.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, we have it,
Because obviously it seems like it's continuing to occur. So
Do you send them a letter? Do you sit them down? How do you handle that?
Well, certainly, in the past we've sat down with it at times, but we've addressed it through paperwork, memos,
kind of progressively.
paper trail, trying to
Little hint,
progressively get them to do it. It's tough because we can't set a quota. We can't tell them that they got to come in here and they got to give 6 tickets. They can't come in and say they have to give me 1 ticket.
This isn't just tickets, this is stops, right?
This
Or is this tickets?
No, it stops.
Stops.
more vehicle stops. So we expect them to,
It doesn't have to be an arrest, but we expect some interaction with the motoring public to establish that bond and deter crime and promote highway safety. And
certainly your expectation is that, we hire these officers to do a particular job, and one of their jobs is traffic enforcement. So we would expect to see that show on the sheet. When it doesn't, it can be, and over my years on this job, it can be a very difficult thing to address. But we're trying to do that actively right now. And, you've got to start at the beginning, and then progressively, hopefully, they'll either, we'll start getting more activity, or we'll have to address it with, some type of, proactiveness, like, putting a supervisor in the car with them. There's a lot of different ways you can get them to start or get them motivated to give us a little bit more activity.
okay, thanks.
Motion to approve?
For approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Busy. All those in favor? And so moving on to the report of the chief.
the first topic I had was the Beecher Road School Memorandum of Understanding pertaining to the SRO. We discussed it in the June meeting. The MOU expired in July and needed to be updated. I've spoken and met with Superintendent Bob Gilbert over the summer, and the essence of the document all remains the same. The modification we made is in the last paragraph. That's titled duration. The change involves, we're just using the same language that is used in the Amity High School document, which is very similar to this, and that language was already approved by the town attorney. So moving forward now, rather than having to re-sign the document every year, every July 1st, it'll renew itself at that date, unless either us or the Board of Ed decides they want to change. As long as they make notification 45 days prior, we could, squash the agreement or modify the agreement. So other than that, there's really no change in it, and it just if we could, I'll sign it, and the chairman just sign it tonight. I'll get it over to.
So this is basically the same document that we had already redrafted.
Except for that last paragraph. It's the last paragraph is titled duration. And it mirrors the high school one.
Just give me a moment. Let me just. I do recall the language regarding the body cameras in the other MOUs. It may have been, I just don't recall that language. As
Yeah.
far as the notification,
No,
was the notification part of it as well?
yeah, everything stayed the same except for that one last paragraph.
I did not remember
We
that.
can go back and double check it if you want to hang, if you want to.
Would you mind? Do you have it easily available?
Yeah.
So the language that I'm talking about is in regards to body cameras, that the officer has to advise the staff, students, and guests that they're activating the body camera or audio. I don't
And
remember
what
that.
did you,
I don't remember that being part of the prior MOU.
so you went over that document pretty thoroughly last time.
I did, but I changed a lot of it, but I just don't remember that.
So they have to notify everybody that they're,
When they do it, when they activate it.
so you're in the middle of an event. What do you do?
I mean, the language says when feasible, but that's, they're going to be held to that.
They are going to be held to that.
Right.
So it
That's
doesn't sound reasonable for the,
That's not done in other police contexts. Officers not obligated to do that. So that's what I'm just concerned about, that requirement.
What as far as notifying them when they're gonna put it on? Yeah. I think it's just to protect the kids.
The children are involved.
but if you're in the
Yeah, I understand,
middle
but I
of
mean,
an
the disclosure would concern me, not that
Yeah.
not the taping.
I mean, it's not part of our regular training.
It wouldn't be, right, but it wouldn't be. I mean,
But it's a requirement through the MOA.
the MOU,
But that's our
well, I mean, it's our language to
so you can change.
discuss.
You might be,
I'm not sure if I mean, I'll certainly talk to the chief when he gets back, but I don't know that, I just don't remember agreeing to that in the other MOUs.
No, I don't think it's changed. It hasn't changed.
Maybe I just didn't pick up on it. Can I just pass this back to you? Have you read this recently? Mm-hmm. If you can just look at the bottom right, if you can just show that to the chief. So the bottom right has a listing of different things that can happen when there's a violation of a law. It says verbal warning, arrest, and I forget the others. So,
I remember just coming up here.
right, and so at the beginning of that section, it talks about graduated responses. Though that doesn't seem like it's appropriately marked, because that's not a graduated response, because why would it be verbal warning, arrest, and then referral for discussion? That's
I think
just,
those are all the different options.
right, but at the
Correct.
beginning of that,
Not necessarily in.
if you flip it over, flip the page back. If in the beginning of that section talks about these are the graduated responses. You see that language?
Right.
We just need to amend it because that's not correct.
Yeah, but that's what it was in the last one.
No, I changed that in the past because I remember that
No,
Hasn't been
it
changed.
says the same, it says the same thing.
it doesn't make any sense.
That's how the high school one's the same.
How is that? How are those graduated responses? That's not.
Because I think that it just means it doesn't mean that you have to, these are all the different responses.
No, I know that, but when it's typically those are typically drafted that matter, they do it in the order of severity of the response. We just have to switch it around.
Right, but this is well, we already have the one in place for the high school that we agreed to this way last time and it renewed, and
You
this
know,
is the same.
that may be the case, but that's not. That doesn't make sense. Do you have the high school? Can I just take a look?
No, this is the one, this is the,
Last year's MOU?
from Beecher,
From
yes.
Beecher, okay. Yeah, this last one has
Yeah, because
it.
it says classroom intervention may include, and it lists all of these. So it's,
I'm not concerned about what
So it's not necessarily going to be in that
Does not
order.
necessarily
Because
be in that order.
referral to the juvenile board could be at the top
Right, my only
before
concern
you
is
even give a verbal warning.
it's not the content, it's just the order's mixed up. I mean, because this is going to be used in perpetuity now, I'd rather get it right than, this is not going to be reviewed every year.
But then we're gonna have to modify the high school one too, I guess, right? Because it says the same.
Yeah, the same thing.
It's the same,
you're talking about the order. It doesn't necessarily mean that those have to happen in
understand.
that order.
we don't have to do any
But
of
they're
those.
It's not
just-
going to happen.
Yeah, but it starts in graduated.
Right,
It doesn't
it's just
graduate.
Right, you gotta- I think maybe
Either take out the graduated,
take out the graduated.
Yeah.
I would.
You have to change it
Be a
one way or
lot
another.
easier,
Yeah.
Change
Right?
graduate.
I mean, change one word, get the graduated out of there, and
But does it really make sense to list it in no particular order?
So just
No.
switch the order. That's it.
right.
I mean, we're from
Yeah, but sometimes you're not doing it in that
from
order.
least severe to
The
most
order of
severe.
arrest. You know, so because where you put the juvenile referral before the arrest, after the arrest, it may not sit. Maybe that's not a good
So
analogy.
get rid of the wording, change the wording.
These
One has to
If
change.
the
Either we
results, if the results
reshuffle it.
are, if the results, the parameters within, the events are correct, then you just have to change the top heading, I would assume, from a gradual response.
maybe we could have
to-
Mr. Weiner take a look at it. I mean, this, he's reviewed it in the past, the same document, and it's like a template of the state model policy that everybody's using.
It may be, it doesn't mean it's right. I mean, I've dealt with this a number of times in my career. Just because it's used around the state doesn't mean it's correct. I mean, there are state
No,
forms
I mean, we
that are
agreed,
incorrect.
we agreed to the same policy for the last couple of years.
You know something,
That's all I'm
I
saying.
understand it, but it's wrong. I mean, we should change that. I mean, it's not that hard to do, it's just either,
So what do we want to do, take out?
either
graduate?
reshuffle that bottom box on the right, or take out the graduated response.
Instead of graduate, but possible responses,
Potential response.
potential.
Yeah.
It's not hard to adjust that.
Couldn't say potential responses in no particular order.
It does have significance when people are challenging how they're being treated. If someone's being treated in a different manner, in that order, the way it's written, I think is dangerous for the Board of Ed.
Okay, I'll bring it to the superintendent, bring his attention to me. And Mr. Weiner, we'll go from there.
Okay, sorry, Darrell, you're up to the
Let them do that.
AED equipment.
Yeah, so over the past couple of months, we moved forward another one of our capital projects for this year. It's the upgrading of our automatic external defibrillators. We just purchased 6 new state-of-the-art physio control life packs. 5 will be used in patrol, where they go out 24/7, 365, and we were able to get the funding to purchase a 6th unit. You might have seen it when you come in the front lobby there. It's in a wall-mounted alarm cabinet, and why we want to do that, it provides quick accessibility to the public. In the hopeful not event that there's a medical emergency at the town green, there'll be one for public access
Here at the station.
readily available. I'm sorry?
Here at the station.
Yes,
Yeah, right inside the front door of the lobby, so somebody has to come right in the front door, they could direct it to them, and the public could have access to it. Just like there's one inside the town hall, inside there.
Is there going to be signage outside reflecting that we have it inside?
Yeah, we're gonna try to get something on the glass outside, it's right on the inside door, but something that, that. And our paramedic, Mike Morganski from AMR he oversees the town's heart safe community, and he was instrumental in helping us get the right units, and he's actually doing some quick in service training with the guys to make the transition. We'll get them out on the road in the near future. On July 6th, before then, on July 10th, Tuesday evening, we had a community meeting at the JCC that was attended by myself, the deputy chief, the first selectman, and Trooper Merriam from Troop I in Bethany. It was kind of a large neighborhood watch type meeting that some residents had organized, and it involved a good open dialogue and sharing of information, and a lot of it had to do with the car break-ins around town. So it went well, and it was nice to be, face-to-face, and we could give some tips, and people share some of their concerns. And the consensus was that the organizer is hoping to maybe have a meeting like that, quarterly in different places, and for whoever in the public's able to come and just share information and go from there. On July 6th, Officer Pedalino, who's our representative to the Southwest Regional Special Response Team, responded on a call out of a barricaded suspect at a condominium in Milford. That call was during the day and involved the evacuation of the area and some residents, and also securing a perimeter, and it eventually, after a few hours, ended without incident, and the suspect surrendered. So that worked out well, and it was good, actual hands-on participation with him with all the training they do. On July 15th, the police department hosted the annual Senior Center Summer Picnic. Myself, Deputy Chief Bob Hauser from Facilities worked the grill, and we had the help of Selectman Crisco, Detective Monaco, Detective Luzzi, Dispatcher Carr, and Records Clerk Patty Monaco. So, and all the coordination with Janice with the funding for that. And as usual, it was well received, and it was fun for all of us, and fun for all the seniors that attended. So special thanks to everyone that stepped up and from here and helped us out. An update on the emergency fire department car set training. So it's been scheduled, and we'll be doing it We're hosting it here on September 17th, 18th, and 19th. It's a 3-day class, and then again, it's going to be held in Waterbury on September 28th, October 1st, and October 2nd. So we'll get our dispatchers and a supervisor through here, and then the ones that some have to work, so they'll be going to the one a week later. So once that's completed and play, we should be able to hopefully get the fire department card set questions into play. Provided that we're able to find out a way to substitute the medical cards for the fire cards, as Mr. Hauser, voiced, there is a labor issue concern that we're going to have to work through, or see which way we're going to proceed. We're going to do the training and see where it takes us. But in addition to that, last month we met with the chairman of the Woodbridge EMS committee regarding the police department handling the EMD calls. And it was our suggestion or thought, so we could eliminate one card set and take on the fire card set, that we would do like Orange Police does and transfer the pre-arrival instructions over to AMR. So we wouldn't be giving up the dispatch of the ambulance. Our dispatcher would take the medical call, dispatch the paramedic like they do now, dispatch the police officer like they do now, talk to the caller, obviously, and get the basis of what the emergency is. And like they do now, they would pick up the direct line to AMR and tell them that we also need an ambulance, that the paramedic and the police are responding to such and such a call. And at that point, they would just turn over the one portion of their whole EMD aspect. They turn over the pre-arrival instructions to the dispatchers at AMR, who are medical people. It'd be probably best for them to do it. And that's kind of helps out because it eliminates all the police Q&A. It lets them do that. And the chairman of the Woodbridge EMS, he was on board with it. He said he had no objection to possibly doing that on a trial period and see if that works, so that would allow us to get the card sets into play. Like Ray and I have said before, it seems like a win-win situation and a big first step for us to be able to implement the fire card set. Assist in improving our dispatchers' efficiency by freeing them up so they could not do the card set, the medical card set, and do the fire card set. It's a win for the police in maximizing our dispatcher staffing levels because, as we discussed, there's a lot of times when we only have one dispatcher on at a time. It's a win-win for the EMS because the medical pre-arrival instructions are going to be coming directly from the medical side of that. And it saves funding on doing anything else as far as worrying about if we're going to have to hire more dispatchers or, until we decide what we're going to do, at least we get some enhancement of our fire dispatch started as we move forward. That's my recommendation, and we'll see, after we do the training, we'll see where it takes us and how we work through any labor concerns and the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen of what we should do. But that's where we're at.
Was the dispatcher union interested in doing both the fire cards and the ambulance card, the medical cards?
No, they can't do both at the same time.
No, I'm saying, but were they interested in doing that because they expressed an interest that they don't want to lose the medical cards?
Correct. Maybe Bob, you can answer that a little bit better. They don't want to give up any of the work. They're afraid of the threat of regionalization. That topic's been put out there, and I know that's a big concern, and rightfully so. What I'm saying is, I don't see what they're giving up because they're going to give up. Like the medical dispatch has 5 aspects. It's you're the call taker, you dispatch the police, you dispatch the medic. You're still going to call the ambulance, AMR, and dispatch the ambulance. You're just not going to do the pre-arrival instructions. So you're doing the medical dispatch. You're only giving up this 1/5 of the medical dispatch, and you're taking on the whole fire card set. So I
think it was a creative idea that you came up with, that we were stuck with this situation that we're dealing with, that the fire folks were concerned about not being addressed in the dispatch some of their specific fire issues that we haven't trained on. So the fire cards would alleviate that issue. And we're basically, it was a swap. Is that they're not losing a task, it's just a different type of task.
Correct.
So instead of medical, it's fire.
And it's only one part of the medical side. They're still going to be doing, like I said, there's 5 components of the medical side. They're not giving up the medical side. They're taking on the fire card set. They're just giving up the card set portion of medical.
But they don't want to give up the card set
They're
of
not giving up their
medical.
dispatch.
But it seems like it might be some protection against regionalization. Because
I'm sorry?
might be some protection against regionalization because that part of the medical dispatching is already included in what we're paying.
Correct.
And this may actually save.
That's
Enough so that-
that's what we're thinking. And the part I forgot to mention also, the big part of this is the quality assurance portion of the dispatch card set. You have to be able to maintain the quality assurance, and to do that, you need special software to do it. And AMR was helping us out with it, but they usually do that for a fee. If we're giving the pre-arrival instructions, we're supposed to Q&A it, but we don't have the software particular to that. They do, because they do it all the time. So they did a little bit of our QA, but they'll do it for a fee. But they said they'll just take the whole pre-arrival questions, and they assume the whole liability. And I know the EMS Commission, and Ray, you could chime in if you want, but that's a big part of the upcoming medical response plan, that our local EMS plan. And one of the things that's really stressed in there is the quality assurance portion of it. And for us to be able to put that burden on AMR, just kind of alleviates a lot. So it's kind of, solving a lot of problems, saving money, getting the fire card set into play. And it's not to say that, maybe in the future we might consider, okay, we tried the card set, and maybe as we move down the road, we might want to move to the next level of the software. I'm not saying we won't, we will, we could, or we couldn't, but it's been 2 years. I say, we've been dealing with it for 2 years. We're at the point we're training on the card set. So if we're going to train, let's at least get them into play and start there and move forward. So that's my recommendation. But next month, after we finish the card set training, we could discuss it further and see where we go. But it's moving in the right direction anyway. Anything, Ray, to add on that? Yeah, the next thing is vehicles. One of our other capital budget projects, the second one we're moving forward with, and this is in conjunction with the bid waiver from our last meeting. We're moving ahead with the purchase of 2 new SUVs to continue with the rotation of our fleet. That was already approved in the capital budget, so we're good to go with that. And then independent of that, we're working with the finance director in utilizing insurance reimbursement money. We had an officer involved in a motor vehicle accident on the 27th while responding to an emergency call. He was coming down Amity Road, and a vehicle made a left turn in front of him rather than yielding the right of way. The officer was found not to be at fault, but the vehicle sustained extensive damage. So we're working with Tony to replace that car too. It's kind of an insurance claim on that. So we'll be moving forward with that. And the last thing I had were the 2 letters of accommodation and 2 certificates of accommodation. I think the certificates went around for your signature, so we'll
No,
just...
they're going to go right now. If you
Okay, they'll go around.
you use the black pen that you have,
Would you use black?
that one that I gave
Okay.
you, so they're all the same. Thank you.
And the first one was a letter of commendation that came from me to Detective Michael Luzzi. And briefly, that occurred on June 21st. He was returning from New Haven. He observed a stolen Ford pickup truck. He recognized it as the vehicle that was reported stolen from Ansonia Road here. And he's rash of car burglaries. Earlier that morning, several hours earlier, he spotted the car on Whaley Avenue. They ended up following it over to Whaley near Ramsdale. The people bailed out, but after a short foot chase, some of our guys were down there in New Haven. They were able to make an arrest of 2 people involved and recover that vehicle, and also that linked up to the the car burglary that had occurred. And the second one occurred on the 19th to Sergeant Capiello, was working a private duty assignment. He heard dispatch send officers to Citizens Bank on a report of a male making fraudulent transactions. He located a person outside in the parking lot. Person had fake identity, a fake passport. He was wanted by the U.S., or he's working with the U.S. Secret Service that put out an alert for him. I guess he's been going throughout Connecticut, New York, cashing fraudulent federal treasury checks. So, he was able to get down there quick and make an arrest on that. And the two certificates of commendation that are coming around, one will go to Officer Joseph Kubik, and that was from a day on an incident on July 27th. He was on Whaley Avenue and he observed a male sitting on the sidewalk. He sort of saw a second male run up and run behind him and take something from him. The first male yelled that he had gotten robbed. Officer Kubik was able to follow the person who was on foot, and he eventually got on a bicycle, and he was able to find him in the area, and he located the suspect on Fountain Street and was able to take him into custody and hold him until the New Haven Police Department arrived on scene, and they were able to make an arrest on that and for robbery, and also recovered the stolen property. And the other one was a certificate of commendation to Sergeant Capiello. That both actually occurred on the same day as his other one. He was working that same job. And this is almost why it's so valuable when we have the extra guys working various road jobs, that it just has a lot more people in a lot more different areas. On this date, it was June 19th, again, he was working a road job down on Litchfield Turnpike, and a report came in of a robbery that had just occurred. 5 females had robbed and assaulted an individual, and they were reportedly traveling south on Litchfield Turnpike. He had a description of the vehicle and located the suspect vehicle at Litchfield Turnpike and Landon Street. He was able to stop the car, and when the other officers arrived, they took 5 people into custody and made an arrest of 5 people on the robbery. So that's what the other one is now. So kudos to all of them for a job well done and recognition on that. So, and that's it for
Move to the Chief of Police report.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Unanimous?
moving on to personnel.
Let's go.
Moving on to personnel. We talked about our workman's compensation case that we still have going on. We have a dispatcher that is out. He's back at work, but he's on limited duty, and he's going to physical therapy still. And just most recently, the town workman's comp carrier sent him for an independent medical exam at the end of August, and at the beginning of September. That was supposed to be reviewed by a physician, so we'll see what they say about his prognosis and where we go with that. And we have an officer who's been on extended sick leave since June 19th. He's been out. On August 28th, he advised us he thought looks like he's going to be out for another 2 months or so. So we've been short there too. That's going to take him until it looks like into October or November. We spoke with him this evening, and he had this afternoon. He had a doctor's appointment this evening, and hopefully he's going to get us some sort of an evaluation or prognosis from his physician as to his status. But hopefully he's going in the right direction on that. And it looks like he may be going out on family medical leave for a bit until he could get situated and get in order. So we'll keep you posted on that. And we have 2 requests to carry over vacation days. One was for our newest officer, Rodriguez Perez. He mistakenly assumed that he was unable to use his vacation while he was on field training. He didn't think that would be proper to take time off. So we thought he would take it when he finished his field training. And then what happened was, as he finished his field training, his anniversary day lapsed. So long and short of it is he has 4 days he wants to carry over and use as soon as possible. So I have no problem with that one. if the board's okay with that. And the second one was due to job responsibilities, workload, and scheduling conflicts. Janice has asked permission to carry over 7 days of unused vacation beyond her anniversary date of September 18th. And I'm good with both of those as long as the board is.
I need a motion.
Do we have to vote on both of them together or separate?
You can do them both together.
I'm going to accept the allow carryover unused vacation.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Thank you
All
very
those in
much.
favor? You have to vote. All those in favor?
Thank you.
Unanimous.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
We have a new SRO at the high school, as the deputy chief mentioned during his activity report on July 18th. We have 3 applicants from our department to be interviewed to take up to fill up the vacancy that occurred when Officer Scott Prentice, who had the position for the last 2 years, elected to go back to patrol. And the interviews were done similarly to how we've done them in the past for both Beecher and for the high school in the past, and it was done with a piano involving police and school administration. Of the 3, Officer Frank Sapione was selected for the position. You might remember he came here a couple of years ago from Stratford. He's well suited for the job. He had been a school resource officer. He's all certified in that regard, so we didn't have to send him for additional training. He's experienced in it. He's well versed in security and safety and tactics. So he has a lot to offer in the school, especially Amity. They're looking at a lot of security upgrades. So he'll be very beneficial to them. He's actually also our firearms instructor, and the timing just worked out well that we were able to get him to do our long guns, our shotguns and patrol rifle, and we did our OC, our pepper spray and taser training all towards the end of July and August, and we got that all done before he got over to the school. So that helped with that. Talked to Principal Mann and also the interim superintendent, Jim Connolly, and they're happy with him. So both Officer Sapione and Officer Lynch is back at Beecher. Both of them are in place, and they started off the school year. And they're on their way. And the last topic I had was hiring. So during the next month, I'd like to plan on move forward with background investigations. We still have 1 opening now. We hired, Officer Lima. We have 1 opening that was the lieutenant's, the transition. So we had 20. That'll bring us up to 25 to where we're supposed to be. So we have 1 more vacancy, which I think will be prudent to go with another certified officer to get somebody on board if we could find the right person, maybe someone similar to the attributes that Mr. Lima had. And then once we're up to staff, should we have any other vacancies that come up down the road, maybe think about then doing a new recruit, only because that takes a year to get them on the road almost, and we don't want to get there. And I'm basing my decision on that because of the fact that we have an officer that had told us, a year ago and again 6 months ago that he's getting ready to retire this winter. But most recently expressed to me that he's looking at possibly leaving in December. So that'll be another vacancy. And we have the officer that's out on the extended sick leave. We hope all the best for him and hoping that he's able to come back too. But we're going to be short there until he comes back. And so we don't want to be down 2 or 3 guys even after we hire the one tonight. We have 1 vacancy and 1 who we know he's going to retire. He just doesn't give us the official date yet. So we still have 2 vacancies and a guy out on extended sick leave. And once we start the background checks, it'll take a few months anyway to move forward with anything or make any decisions. But at least we'll get the background checks started and background investigations started and see what candidates we might have. And that's all I have on the personnel.
Okay. So motion to adjourn the police commission.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you.
7:32. Okay, the Woodbridge Traffic Authority, 7:32. Any public comments or correspondence?
There's not.
There are a number of traffic matters.
Yes, few topics. So we have Cycle for the Cause is a bicycle ride fundraiser to fight HIV and AIDS. They're sponsoring a 3-day bike ride. They're traveling from Framingham, Mass. to New York City, and they expect to pass through Woodbridge on September 22nd, somewhere between 11 in the morning and 12:45. They'll be coming up Fountain Street and also travel on Route 243 and Sonia Road for a distance of about 3 miles in town. They say they don't need any road closures. They don't anticipate any problems, and we'll make sure that patrol is aware of the event. They just need the permission of the traffic authority so they can get their permits to use the highway.
Did we supply them any additional officers other than who's on?
No, we just let the
So there's no
parade patrol.
issue with overtime or cost?
No.
Are there any issues you see with that?
No,
Any restrictions we should put on it?
no. We'll make patrol aware, that's it.
Is there a motion?
Make a motion to accept
Second.
the Cycle for the Cause.
Thank you. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.
Janice has the updated form from the Connecticut DOT that we have to just file, and it lists all the members of the commission that serve as a local traffic authority. So it just needs a signature of the chairman.
This goes to,
State Traffic Authority.
Is the fax number your fax? Okay.
The next topic is we have a request for a 4-way stop sign at the June Street and Selden Street intersection. So I spoke to the first selectman a couple weeks ago now, and she has requested that a 4-way stop sign be erected at the intersection of June and Selden, and she's seeking the traffic authority's consideration of possible approval of same. If you're familiar with the intersection, that's it runs parallel. Selden Street runs parallel to Amity Road. It's where the little plaza, Selden Plaza is there, and it heads down to the Amity Shopping Center. It's kind of the back access road to the Amity Shopping Center. So currently, now they have the increased traffic to that, so it's even more concerning. And then couple that with the Woodbridge Club during the summer, that adds to the traffic for people coming and going in there. So we added to the agenda for the Woodbridge Traffic Committee to discuss and to possibly meet with the residents before we bring it to your level if we have to. We've also signed a traffic study to be done, so that's in progress for the area. And I have a speed trailer put out on Overhill Road and on Tumblebrook Road to promote some awareness on the route there too. So that's in the works. And that's all for traffic.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn the traffic authority?
I'm going to the traffic.
Is there a second?
Sure.
All those in favor? That is unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay.